Hi guys, how have you been? Wish you all a very good morning. And this is Vidisha Vitlani here. I'm an IELTS trainer and I've been training students since a lot of time now, I think. And it's freezing. Nice winter morning is here, and we're here for one of the components that we all face a lot of difficulties in. And one such component, as we know, is a reading component where all of us tend to lose marks. Right. Okay. Now, this component is today's session is specifically directed towards a type of a question, towards a particular question type. And this question type is match the headings. We all have this dilemma. I mean, we're all phobic towards this particular type of heading, and I'm not really sure why. Because honestly saying, it's not as difficult as we assume it to be. It's not as bad. Okay. Meanwhile, I'll be just starting it. I'll tell you how I'm going to take you through this webinar. By the way, for those who attended the webinar first time, welcome. For those who have seen me before, who know me, uh, hi, it's good to see you back, and I'm glad you benefited from the last ones. Right. By the way, what we're going to do is I'm going to share a PPT in few minutes. I'll take you through a presentation. Please pay very close attention to that presentation. Take very good notes. I would advise you to keep a pen and paper in hand because we'll be solving practically. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you through the theory first. I'm going to tell you how to solve. I'm going to teach you the tricks and techniques. But what we're going to do most of the times is we're going to solve practically the questions. We're going to do it together, because ultimately, if I just explain you the theory and tips and techniques, is something that you all know. But unless and until we solve it, it's not something that you're going to understand. So I'm going to make you solve these. I'm going to make you solve an entire section. So this is for those who are appearing for their general training. This is somewhere like your third component. Okay. For any queries relating to when I'm taking the webinar, if you have any queries, I would like you to post it in the question answer box. I might take it. I will take it at the end of the session. If you have any queries relating to anything relating to IELTS, like even throughout the webinar, or anything relating to the reading component, anything related to overall queries about the IELTS, please post it in the question answer box. I will take care of it at the end of the session. If you have any other queries apart from non-IELTS thing, anything else you want to know, please put it in the question answer box. But yes, anything that you want me to personally answer about IELTS, please go for it in the question answer box. Okay, I'm going to take you through a PPT now. We're going to start with our match the headings session. I hope I'm audible to everybody, and let's do this. Alright, how many of you have practiced the reading component? And what's like, I realized per se that the only query that most of you all have is with two question types, and these two question types are nothing but match the headings and true false not given. So we're going to do this, and especially I have had a webinar on true false not given also. So in case you've missed out on it, you can go to our IELTS tutorial sites and check out the new webinar. Also, you can check out the link of the webinar on YouTube. It's there on our official channel. Please post a like or any comment that you really want in there. So generally, I always go for offline classes and online classes both. But this is something that I'm going to do for you today. I mean, I've always been good with. I've taken a lot of webinars before as well, but then I always come up with some of the other technical issue. And today there is one, and I need to get it resolved. So I'll just begin with the presentation now, without much ado, without wasting a lot of time, and we'll just begin. Okay, now the first thing that we're going to study is how to solve. So see, most of the students, what they do is they actually read the whole paragraph, and once after reading the whole paragraph, then they, glance at the headings and then they figure out. But this is one thing that I would want to tell you. One thing I would really want to tell you is don't glance at the headings first. The first thing, don't read the paragraph first. What you really do is you actually go through just glance at the headings. Don't pay a lot of attention to it. Have a nice look at the headings, and then go to the paragraph. Okay, now let's say I have 5 paragraphs and I have to give 5 headings to this. So what you really do is, don't read the whole text. Okay? What you do is you read one paragraph at a time. Go for one paragraph. Let's say you've read the A paragraph and understand a paragraph. Try to predict an heading. Okay, try to get the gist of heading. Let's say the A paragraph is talking about the beginning of something. So naturally, you know that okay, it is the beginning of something. Once you know the beginning of something, you actually start summarizing it. Then go back to the headings and then solve it. So what I simply mean by what I said right now was that do one heading at a time. Do one heading at a time, do one paragraph at a time. Don't do everything all at once. It's not going to help. Okay, so again, I'm repeating what you're supposed to do. The first thing that you're supposed to do is you're supposed to glance at the headings. Just glance. Okay. Second thing you're supposed to do is take a look at the paragraph, read the paragraph, try to get a summary of it. Once you get the summary of it, I really want you to, understand this. I really want you to take a note of this. Predict the heading, then go back to the list of headings and pick one heading. Getting this? Okay. Okay. Now these are few strategies that you have to understand. Do one paragraph at a time. This is what I've told you. Okay. Now the second one is quite useful. Match the ideas to the ideas and not words to the words. What I mean by this is many a times we get carried away by words. Let's say the word is combined, okay? And the entire heading and entire paragraph I'm trying to match word to word. But what if the word is linked? For the heading, the word is linked. So if the word is linked and in the paragraph it's combined, so if I try finding only a specific word, I'm not going to find it ever. What I really have to work upon is finding ideas to ideas, matching ideas to ideas. I can't match words to words because naturally there will be a technique called paraphrasing. In all my webinars, I have emphasized and I will keep emphasizing on this particular technique. This technique is called the technique of paraphrasing. What paraphrasing usually means is trying to, rephrase the thing. The structure of the sentence is changed and the synonyms are used. So always for the headings, this particular technique, this particular strategy will be used and you have to be very careful with it. Okay, now, how generally this is the best thing. The third strategy is a very important one. Please read the first sentence and the last sentence of the paragraph. Okay, please read the first sentence and the last sentence of the paragraph. What I mean by this is, out of your paragraph, 80% is going to be distraction. Let's say I'm going to teach you something today. I came, I introduced myself, and I introduced the topic. I'm not going to introduce the topic to you towards the, in between or something. I'm not going to create a nice big background and then, put something in between. So it's a natural logic. It's a natural phenomena that the first sentence is going to be, the heading. The first sentence or the last sentence would be summarizing the paragraph. So basically, how do you pick a title? You pick a title when you summarize the paragraph, right? So first thing I really want you to do is I really want you to summarize the paragraph, go through the paragraph. Okay, now moving ahead, solve this question type first. Now a lot of students have this weird habit. I don't know how does this come from and where did this come from. They just pick up and they're like, we do this at the end because you're so scared, because you feel that okay, this is not something that you do. Now see, understand one thing. When you're going through the headings, when you're solving this particular question type, what really happens is you're technically solving it. So you're technically reading the whole paragraph. And when you read the whole paragraph, what you do is you're actually the remaining questions, it becomes very easy to solve them, right? So when you're actually reading the whole paragraph, you know that it's easier to solve them, so you won't have a problem with it. Okay, now moving ahead. If there are 2 to 3 headings that are similar, write them beside the paragraph and try to find the difference between 2 headings. This simply means that whenever there are 2 close answers, you always pick the one that gives a broader perspective. Now write down for the headings, you always go for broader perspective. With true false MCQs, with true false not given and MCQs, you go for the narrow point specific answer. Again, I'm repeating this rule. For the headings, you always go for the broader answer, the heading that covers all of it, not just which points out to one specific thing. But for true, false, not given, and for MCQs, you pick up something that is extremely point specific. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead. We actually start solving the paragraph together. Keep a pen and paper in hand because I will ask you to solve it. I'll solve the first one for you. Okay, now first thing first, what was the first step in my strategy? The first step was we glanced through the headings. We have 9 headings and we're going to glance through all of them, right? Okay, now see, the first heading says the search for reasons for an increase in population. Okay, underline the word search, underline the word reasons, underline population. Okay, search reasons population. So basically, I will have to find out, and for giving a heading to this paragraph, I'm going to find out in which paragraph is the search for an increase in population given. Okay, second paragraph, industrialization and the fear of unemployment. I have 2 keywords here. The first keyword is industrialization. The second keyword is unemployment. Okay, the development of cities in Japan for the time and place of industrial revolution. Okay, underline Japan, underline industrial revolution, time and place. Underline Japan. Japan is your keyword here because it's a proper noun. Underline time and place of industrial revolution. Okay, the fourth one is again time and place of industrial revolution. So again, three and four are close. So let's say we'll go for the keyword Japan. Right. The cases of Holland, France, and China. Holland, France, and China mentioned in any paragraph. Right. Changes in the drinking habits in Britain. Drinking habits changes is your keyword. 2 keys to Britain's industrial revolution. Underline the word 2 keys. That means in any of the paragraph, wherever 2 factors or 2 causes are given, that's going to be my answer. Conditions required for industrialization. Conditions in the sense, any, prerequisites. So conditions is going to be answer. What are the prerequisites of an industrial revolution? How did an industrial revolution actually take place? And the next is comparisons with Japan to lead an answer. Underline the word comparisons to Japan. So what I made you do right now is I made you understand each and every heading. After understanding each and every heading, meanwhile, you simultaneously underline the keywords. This is exactly what you're supposed to do because when you underline the keywords, it's spotable in the thing. Okay, now I'm going to read a paragraph to you and I'm going to figure out whether what heading is this. Okay, we're doing this passage. First of all, let me give you a brief of this passage. This passage is from Cambridge 10, and this passage is called Tea and the Industrial Revolution. Tea and Industrial Revolution is a paragraph that has paragraphs A to G, and this is a very good test for solving headings. Also, the level of this exam is something that is going to be there in your exams. So when you're solving the reading component, if you solve something like this, if you're able to solve this, you'll be able to go through exams really, really well. So be careful with this. All right, let's go ahead. Okay. Alan McFarlane, a professor of anthropological science at King College, Cambridge, has, unlike other historians, spent decades wrestling with the enigma of industrial revolution. Why did this particular Big Bang, world-changing birth of industry happen in Britain? And why did it strike at the end of 18th century? Okay, do you get this? Do you actually understand this? That there is this particular line that says that there is a professor who has spent decades wrestling the enigma of industrial revolution. Wrestling means basically the meaning of wrestling the enigma is wrestling is figuring out. Wrestling is actually fighting, but here it can be used in terms of figuring out. Okay, one very important tip in reading is don't take the words as it is. They may be used with different way. As you know, in English, we do tamper with the words, we do play around with the words. So this is a classic example of it. Enigma is mystery. So basically, they're trying to figure out how did the Industrial Revolution take place. So why did this Big Bang, world-changing birth of industry, happen in Britain? So here, can I say that they're trying to figure out why this happened in a particular place and why did it strike at the end of the 18th century? So can I say that they're trying to figure out why did it happen at a particular time? So I had this one heading that said something similar to this, and I think that was time and place of industrial revolution. can I say the fourth heading is something that means this. Okay, now I had the third heading, which was a close answer. The development of cities in Japan for the time and place of industrial revolution, but here it's not relating to Japan, it's relating to Britain. I can't see Japan anywhere, so I have avoided this. Okay. Can you now see and hear? I mean, I hope everybody is able to see and hear this. Right. Okay, moving ahead. Okay, now this paragraph was a slightly shorter one, right? This paragraph is quite short, so it was easier to figure out, and I could read the whole thing quite easily and figure out the heading be accurately. So see, when in reading, I believe reading component is always and always two things. What I feel is very very important. I feel that it is the speed and accuracy. If you have these two things, you're obviously going to score more. I mean, that's very obvious, I think. Um, how to get the speed? The speed of reading can be achieved with a technique called skimming. Now, skimming, the word is very easier said than done, but skimming is something that comes with a lot of practice. What is skimming ideally? I'll tell you. Skimming is ideally when you read something, just glance through something, try to figure out. You don't go in depth, but still you're not understanding each and every word, you're not understanding each and every line, but still you're able to get the basic idea. That's called skimming. Okay, now second is accuracy. Obviously, when you tend to be accurate, you're going to get this. Accuracy comes with a lot of practice, with practicing the tips, practicing the strategies, keep on practicing. Accuracy, I believe there is a lot of logical, analytical skills also employed for accuracy, and I think you may get it. This. Okay, uh, let's read this. Okay, now when we have a big paragraph, what I feel is if you read the first bit and the last bit, you will be able to get this. What is there? See, it is only 20% of your paragraph that's going to make sense. It's only 20% of the paragraph that is your actual answer that's going to be helpful. The 80% is distraction. The 80% is always there to distract the students, and 80% is there to waste your time. So neither do we have to get distracted nor we need to waste our time. So let's try solving all these headings, like there are up to G. Let's try solving all these headings by reading the first two lines and last two lines and try figuring out whether we can. Also, let's try to employ the technique of skimming and see that whether we're able to do this or no. Okay. Maxwell compares the puzzle to a combination log. There are about 20 factors and all of them need to be present before the industrial revolution can happen. So basically he says that there are some around odd 20 factors and that need to be there for the industrial revolution to happen. Okay. Most historians are convinced that there are one or two missing factors that you need to open the log. So basically, how can industrial revolution happen? They can happen with the help of 20 factors. Then there is a lot of disturbance. There actually, I can see some examples of these factors. I can also see country. I think I can see Japan. I can see Netherlands. I can see France. I can see Holland also. So okay, I can see I have two close answers here now. Now let's read this again. I think that there is one thing, conditions required for industrialization, because I feel 20 factors and conditions are exactly paraphrasing. Also, there is one thing, Holland, France and China, and I see all three of them. So I have two close answers. Okay, I have the cases of Holland, France and China, and I have conditions required for industrialization. I have figured this out only with the help of skimming, only with the help of by using the keywords. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to try read this. I'm going to try to skim this. Okay. For industry to take off, there needs to be technology, power to drive factories, large urban populations, to provide cheap labor, easy transport. Okay. So basically there is a lot of factors given. Okay, now let's come to, while this was the case for England, other nations such as Japan, Netherlands, France also met some of these criteria, but were not industrializing. That means they're saying that, okay, England had these, but other nations also had these. All these factors must have been necessary, but not sufficient enough to cause a revolution. After all, Holland had everything else except for coal. China had also many of these factors. So basically, they're just giving examples which country had what. Okay. Now, was there one rule that I explained you when starting to solve this particular question type? Whenever you have two close headings, whenever you have two close answers, like I have one close answer, that is the cases conditions required for industrialization and cases of Holland, France and China. Is my whole paragraph talking about Holland, France and China? Had I to name this, had I to begin this paragraph, what is the ultimate summary of this paragraph is how factors are needed and which factors are needed. So can I say factors requiring industrial revolution and conditions required for industrial revolution are meaning the same thing, are related words, are paraphrased? So can my answer be the eighth one? Yes, do we get this? I hope everybody is following what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to, go a little bit slow as well. And I hope the pace of the webinar is quite fine. Okay, let's go to the C paragraph. Again, what I have is, a big paragraph. So again, I'm going to try figure this out with the help of first two lines and last two lines. Okay, the missing factors he proposes are to be found in every kitchen cupboard. Tea and beer, two of the nation's favorite drinks, fuel the revolution. Antiseptic properties of tannin, active ingredient of the tea, and hops of beer, plus the fact both are made with boiled water, allow the urban communities to flourish at close quarters without succumbing to the waterborne diseases. So basically, can I say that the first line says that there are tea and beer, two of the nation's favorite drinks that fueled the revolution. So can I say two keys to Britain's industrial revolution? Because that is exactly the paraphrasing, and I got it with the help of first two lines and last two lines. Okay, now let's say that this is slightly a vague answer because we have tea and beer and we can't really figure out how to do this. So what I'm really going to do is I'm going to try the process of elimination. Okay, when you don't get anything, you always go with the process of elimination. So far we've learned two things. One thing is that we always go for the broader answer. Second thing, we always, read the first two lines, last two lines and try figuring out. Third thing, we go for paraphrasing. Fourth thing, we go for the process of elimination. Now, what is the process of elimination and how can the process of elimination work? Now, see, I realize this one thing that they're talking about tea and beer, and because of tea and beer, people are not succumbing to dysentery. And there's this last line that says that Macfarlane's case has been strengthened by support from notable quarters. Roy Potter, the distinguished medical historian, recently wrote a favorable appraisal. So basically, he did some research that there are two things that actually are very important: tea and beer. Because of it, people did not succumb to waterborne diseases, and this has been supported. This is the ultimate gist of my paragraph. Okay, now let's read question of headings 1 to 9 and let's see that anything else works. So I've striked out the 8th one, I've striked out the 4th one. Holland and China are naturally not there, so I'm striking out the 5th one. Okay, the search for reasons for an increase in population. I don't think population is mentioned anywhere, so I'm going to strike this out. Also, I have keywords like industrialization and unemployment. Again, this is not there. Okay, the third is Japan. Again, Japan is not there, so let's strike out. So that's why I was making you underline the keywords, because when we have keywords, it's easy. Like in the entire paragraph, I can't see Japan anywhere. So naturally, I'm going to strike it off. 4th and 5th are gone. Okay, I have changes in the drinking habits of Britain. Okay, maybe. Two keys to Britain's industrial revolution. Conditions required for industrialization, that's striked out. Comparison with Japan, again there's no Japan here, so I strike that out. Right, so I have two things: changes in the drinking habits, two keys to the British industrial revolution. Obviously there's no change here. They started drinking tea and beer, and because of it this happened. So my answer is going to be the 7th one. Is this clear? So this time when I was not very sure of what heading to put, when I was not really aware of what I'm supposed to give, I used the process of elimination. Process of elimination was made simple because earlier headings were done. I was done with already 2 headings. Plus, I striked out at least 2 to 3 headings with the help of the keyword technique. Like, for example, at least for the proper noun, I striked out the third one, I striked out the fifth one, I striked out the last one, because there's no Japan and no countries there, so I just randomly gave them away. So naturally, I had only a few things to pick up from, right? Okay, now let's go for this. Let's go for this paragraph. The D paragraph is any which way is a long one. Let's try to read this again. Let's try to, understand this. Macmillan had wondered for a long time how the Industrial Revolution came about. That means how it started. Historians alighted on one interesting factor around the mid 18th century and required explanation. So they came across something. Between 1650 to 1740, the population in Britain was static. But then there was a burst in population growth. Okay, now my keyword population, now I got this thing. Okay, infant mortality rate halved in the space of 20 years, and this happened both in rural areas and cities across the classes. People suggested for plausible clauses what this sudden change in the virus and bacteria. So basically, they're actually trying to find out something, that why is there, like for example, if I see the last one, is so the food must have got worse. Efforts to explain this sudden reduction in child deaths appeared to draw a blank. Now, basically everything is revolving around population here, and I see it's Britain. So again, I cancel Japan, I cancel Holland, France, and China. I cancel the things that have been done. There is no industrialization here. Rather, I can see that there is something relating to population here. So that's why the answer for this is search for the reasons for an increase in population. If you go to see, the entire paragraph revolves around population and how it increased and why there are low child deaths. People are saying something. There are rhetorical questions made. There are assumptions made. So that's how I got to know this. Okay, so let's move on to the next paragraph. Okay, now here let's read the first 2 lines. Right, let's read the last 2 lines. The population burst seemed to happen at the right time to provide labor for the Industrial Revolution. When you start moving towards Industrial Revolution, it is economically efficient to have people living close together. So basically, this says that it's good for, the population increase was good. But however, these 2 lines are not sufficing, since now I'm already, by the time I reached the 5th paragraph, I've glanced and gone through the headings a couple of times, right? So I basically know that this line is not sufficing my headings, because this line is saying that when the population increases, it's good for the Industrial Revolution, which is not mentioned. Rather, I think there's one negative thing for it, and I don't see anything. So, okay, let's go ahead. Let's read this now entirely. Okay, but then you get a disease from in the human waste. Some digging around historical records revealed that there was a change of the incidence of waterborne diseases at that time, especially dysentery. Macmillan deduced that whatever the British were drinking must have been important in regulating the disease. That means they got a particular disease, they succumbed to a particular disease. He says, we drank beer for a long time. The English were protected by strong anterior bacterial agent in the hops, which were added to help to preserve the beer. But in the late 17th century, a tax was introduced on malt, the basic ingredient of beer. The poor turned to water and gin in the 1720, and the mortality rate began to rise again. Then it suddenly dropped again. So what caused this? So basically, in the end, they're saying, if you go to see, the first paragraph is saying that something positive about the Industrial Revolution. The middle bit is, I can say, it is a distraction, which says that there was an increase in dysentery. The last bit, I can say, is saying that a tax was introduced on malt, and that's why the poor changed to water and gin. And again, something happens. So can I say changes in the drinking habits in Britain is the only possible close answer I get. Also, had I even not read the whole paragraph, had I read the first line smashed and the last line smashed, I would have been able to figure this out. But because I was not sure and I wanted to focus a little bit on accuracy, I decided to read the whole thing and get it. Now see, the students who come to me and they're like, we don't want to read the whole paragraph. We just want to read the first 2 lines and last 2 lines, and we're able to scrape through this. I am more than happy. Honestly, there are students who are like they just want to read each and every line, understand it, and then go to the headings. These are the students whose reading speed is very high. Generally, this technique, if you really want to follow, if you really want to go through each and every line, you really want to interpret each and every line, understand each and every line, and then choose a specific heading, I would say your reading speed has to be really, really good. They say they get accuracy with it. See, now, whatever the case may be, I am happy. Always at the end, I have kids running around to me and they're like, give me a strategy, give me something, give me a tip, give me a technique. I just say one thing. There are the tips and strategies which are unlimited. We have skimming, we have scanning, we have sequence, we have keywords, we have paraphrasing, we have elimination, we have a lot of strategies. There's just one strategy that works the best for your exam. I'll just tell you this: choose your own winning strategy. Pick up, that's why, I always keep on emphasizing students that please practice. Please do at least, 5 to 7 tests before you really go for your exam. You know why? Because at that point of time, you're able to make out what strategy you want to choose. Because unless and until you don't practice, you're not going to figure out what is the thing that you're comfortable in. For example, I might be able to read the whole paragraph, then go to the questions, then solve it in full speed because maybe my script reading speed is quite high. There are some people who just lose focus. They don't want to read the whole paragraph, but the logical analytical skills are so good that they just read the first 2 lines, last 2 lines, and they just glance and they get it. Maybe you're not one of them. Maybe there's some people whose spotting skills are really good. They pick up a keyword, they locate the word, then they find out. There are some people who've actually practiced so much that they exactly know then when the answer is going to be. So always pick your own winning strategy. Right. We go to the next one, the last one. No, there are 3 more. Sorry. Okay. You want to try doing this? I'll just give you 2 minutes. Try reading the first 2 lines. Try reading the last 2 lines. I'll make you solve this. But I want to give you some time to try this and try checking out which is the answer. We'll do the last 3 paragraphs together, but I want you to try the last 3 paragraphs. No, last 2 paragraphs. Sorry, you just done. Okay. Okay. Macmillan looked to Japan, which was also developing large cities at the same time. Also had no sanitation. Waterborne diseases had much looser grip on the Japanese population than those on Britain. Could it be the prevalence of tea in their culture? So basically, I have Japan here. Three I have two headings that have the word Japan. Development of cities in Japan for the time and place of industrial revolution. Can you see China? Can you see, I don't think I have development of cities. There is this last heading that says comparisons with Japan that leading to an answer. So basically when Macmillan looked into Japan, he figured out few things. So right now what he's trying to do, he's trying to compare it with Japan. So can I say the last heading is my correct answer? Yes, how many? I hope most of you were able to get this. Okay, let's do the G1. I'll give you again some time. I'll give you a few minutes for this. I want to read this paragraph out to you. But if tea is a factor in the combination lock, why didn't Japan forge ahead in tea-soaked industrial revolution of its own? Macmillan notes that even in the 17th century, Japan had large cities, high literacy rates, even futures market. It had turned its back on any ascent of any work-based revolution, giving up labor-saving devices such as animals, afraid that they would put people out of work. So the nation that we now think is one of the most technologically advanced entered the 19th century having abandoned the wheel. Now, what does this mean? Okay, for this, your process of elimination is working. At the same time, let's say you have 7 paragraphs, out of which there are 4 paragraphs I'm going to get reading the first 2 lines, last 2 lines, just skimming, scanning. But yes, there will be 2 to 3 paragraphs that will be slightly tricky, that you will have to put in a little more effort to understand and gauge this. Now, they said that, okay, Japan also had tea. but why didn't it get into its industrial revolution? Then he says that 17th century Japan also had a lot of things. Then why did it not, why did it turn its back? Why did it not accept any work-based revolution by giving up labor-saving devices? Because they were afraid that they would put people out to work. And what afraid that they would put people out to work is the paraphrasing of the second heading. Do you see this? The industrialization and the fear of unemployment. So Japan basically did not take up industrialization because they were afraid that they would not have work for people. Right. Do you get this? So we've solved around 7 headings, and I hope you by this time you actually get this. Okay, I want you to do a few do's and don'ts. I want you to give a few tips of it. Firstly, be aware of synonyms. Now see, this is exactly the synonym. Fear of unemployment is afraid that they would put people to work. Then, for example, conditions were something relating to factors. So please be very careful. Do these questions first. I had told you before as well that I want you to take up these questions in the first place. Why do I want you to take up these questions? Let's say you've done 7 of these and there are 7 true false not given. So at least I know where each one of them is located. So naturally, when I know the location of answers, it's going to be easier for me to spot these answers, right? So please don't do this at the end. And again, one more thing, don't take too long to solve this. It is actually, not a very time consuming process. If you try practicing, if you've actually practiced quite hard, you will not take more than, per heading should not take more than a minute rather, I would say. And plus, just skim through it. Try, when you're practicing, force yourself not to read the whole paragraph. Force yourself, focus. If your reading, this applies if your reading speed is not fast. So if your reading speed is not fast, focus yourself. Try to direct yourself on just reading the first 2 lines and last 2 lines and getting the relevant answer. Because if you're not getting the relevant answer, reading the first 2 lines and last 2 lines, and you end up reading the whole paragraph, despite your reading skill not being so, despite your reading skill, speed not being so quick, you're going to lose out on a lot of time, which I don't want you to ultimately. Right. Don't match words to words, obviously, because there are synonyms. If you end up matching words to words, if you just focus on the words, you're never going to find your answer, right? Answers do not come in order. That is the basic logic. Your A heading cannot be the first one, B heading cannot be the second one. Okay, don't get confused. Always pick up a close answer. Close answer in the sense, even partially relevant answer you got to pick up. At the same time, you really have to be careful that you always choose the broader answer when it comes to heading. You don't choose the narrow answers. You always go with the broader answers. Okay, I would like to have a quick question answer session with you guys before we end up this PPT. Any doubts in the PPT, do let me know. Any doubts in the PPT, do let me know. So I'll just do a quick revision of the techniques that we studied today. Right, the first technique that we studied today is when you solve the headings, you read the first 2 lines and you read the last 2 lines. The second technique that we studied today is a sequence technique. Sequence technique is you have to, understand the flow of the passage. The third thing that we did was paraphrasing. Paraphrasing in the sense, the synonyms of the words are going to be the same. The structure is going to be the different. So there are going to be synonyms, the words are going to be different, and the structure is going to be different. So that's something that I want you to understand. The third thing that I really want you to understand is choose your own winning strategy. It is very, very, very important to pick up your own winning strategy here, because ultimately that's what counts. If you're comfortable reading the whole paragraph, then going to the headings, do that. But if you want to read the whole paragraph, you'll have to practice so hard that you'll be able to read the whole paragraph in 20 minutes. Because as you all know, the time that is offered to you to read the whole paragraph is very, very limited. You cannot simply read the whole paragraph in your own leisure time and do it. That's why I personally avoid this technique. Also, when you're reading the whole paragraphs, the paragraphs are really, really boring. They're not something. Luckily, this paragraph was slightly interesting. It was relating to tea and industrial revolution, so we could figure something out. But most of the times the paragraphs are really boring. So I generally don't read the whole paragraph. I just read the keywords and this. Also, when you're reading the headings, when you're glancing through the headings, try to gauge what the headings are trying to tell you, right? Try to understand what each particular heading is try to figure out what it means, because ultimately if you figure out what it means, it really works the best, because that's what we did. See, now here you're going to get few things really correct because I explained the headings to you. I showed you what the headings were and then we went to the paragraphs. So it was very easy. But this is exactly what you're supposed to do in the exam for yourself. You're supposed to understand what the heading is. You're supposed to understand what it says. Then you're supposed to, really glance at the paragraph. Again, try to understand on your own what the paragraph means. Then match, right? So that process is slightly tedious, that I feel. So again, that is something that requires a little bit of practice. In the last webinar, I had explained to you guys few things about when I was doing the receptive skills, when I was trying to explain you, there are a few things that I told you back then also, that please work a little bit on your vocabulary. See, there are certain things that come only with vocabulary. I know you don't have to understand the meaning of each and every word in reading. You can't do that. It's not possible. You can't have, such a big lexis that there is everything and anything in the world that you're going to understand. That's technically not possible. I get it completely. But yes, at least you need to have a little bit basic vocabulary that you can really get through. Apart from that, if any question in today's webinar or any review for this, do you get, is there a query? Please post it in the question answer box. I will be able to help you. Okay, one thing that you really have to ensure is throughout the reading exam, you don't take too long for anything. So this is a very, very important tip, and I want you to keep this in mind. Reading, there is no separate time to, transfer the answers. It just get transferred. So what I do is take one paragraph, solve your 14 questions, 7 questions in terms of the general training. Solve the 14 questions and transfer them. Don't give more than 20 minutes to one paragraph. I'll tell you one basic reason of this. When you give more than 20 minutes to one paragraph, when you give more than, a lot of time to one paragraph, what really happens is, let's say I'm finding the last 3 questions. I will end up spending 10 minutes to find out the last 3 questions, whereas my next paragraph, I would have figured out at least 7, 8 next questions. So please don't do that. And generally what happens is when you reach section 3, you're so tired, you're so done that you don't want to do it. Ultimately, you score less. However, section 3 might be, if there is a possibility section 3 might easy or, it's might short. So please pay close attention to all the 3 sections. How do you do all the 3 sections? Take 20 minutes, transfer the answers. Even if you don't find the last 3 answers, leave it unless and until you're very sure that, okay, they're spottable, then okay. But generally, they're not. If you're not finding it, naturally, you're going to stress and, spend a lot of times spending it. So, take it, approach it in a little bit psychological way that, okay, you're not finding it, quit. Don't just, be greedy for the remaining 2 answers. Rather, I would say work towards, the remaining 7 answers you can find in next 10 minutes. So I would rather go for that. Pragmatically talking, rationally, that really works the best, right? Okay, there is one more thing that I really advise my students to do. Again, it works the best. What I generally come across as reading passages are immensely boring. They are, so boring that you tend to lose focus. Focus is very important coming to IELTS exams, because obviously, you're done with the listening, you've paid attention to it, and then you go to the reading bit and you're all tired, you don't want to, sometimes at the end of second passage, you're so done, you don't want to do it. So, keeping the focus is very important. How do you practice this? I'll tell you one very simple way. Pick up a subject that you don't like. Like, for example, when I was practicing my reading, I picked up mechanical engineering. I hated mechanics. I couldn't understand a word out of it. So I used to read one paragraph at a time, try focusing, try staying awake. I used to read it. There were questions at the end. I used to solve it. And that time, I realized one thing, that naturally I'm not going to understand all of it because I don't have the knowledge of it. At the same time, I had to employ all the skills that I had, included paraphrasing, included skimming, included scanning, included the keywords, including the sequence, and then I could figure out the answer. Had I not done that, I would have not, figured out the answers. So always pick up a text that you hate. So if you're an engineer, pick up something related to literature. If you're into language, pick up something related to science. and then solve it. Because ultimately, then you'll have a habit of not understanding things and still getting the right answer, and that's what we're all supposed to do. You're not given marks for understanding the paragraph. You're not literally given the marks for any knowledge inherent you possess, but you're giving knowledge. You're giving marks for just one thing, that is your accuracy, and accuracy in terms of locating the answers. Basically, what is a reading comprehension? That you're able to look at the text and you're able to find the answers out of the text. You don't have to possess any inherent knowledge for it, right? Also, a lot of students get carried away when they really see passages relating to their own field. They're so carried away, they're like, they just want to solve them without going through it. So what they ultimately do is they ultimately figure out something or the other. They keep writing it on their own. Don't do that. Please don't use your own perceptions while doing the reading component. It's not right. You will get wrong answers. There may be trick questions. So please avoid them. What I really want you to do is, don't keep your mind aside. The only job that you have in your reading component is locating the answers. Please do the job properly. Okay. Again, practice vocabulary a little bit, practice reading vocab a little bit. I give one tip to my student. Every webinar, I give this thing. I have given this in the previous webinar also. What I do for this reading is, how I make them increase their speed of reading is, I give them one text, again, something that they don't know about. If a person is studying language, I give them mechanical engineering. If it's studying engineering, I give them anything else relating to something or the other. And what I do is, I tell them that you have to target reading one page in 5 minutes. Let's say they're able to do it. I'll make them do the same thing for the second time. Target, I make them read it for 5 minutes. Next day, I ask them to read 1.5 page in 5 minutes. Next day, I again make them read 1.5 page in 5 minutes. Next day, in 6 minutes, I make them read 2 pages. That way, I'm decreasing the time and I'm increasing the speed. This technique will ultimately help in increasing the speed of your reading. When you're increasing the speed of your reading, all you need is practice. You need to be able to go through the script of it really well. So that's why it's very, very important. Okay, now one more thing that is very important in reading, as I always say, is logical analysis. That comes with a little bit of, again, the tips, the strategies to crack an exam, and that's when you're going to be able to do this. And I think I'm done with the webinar. So I think, do you have any other queries? Do you have any other questions that you really want to answer? You really want to have any other doubts in any other components? Any comments on the webinar? Just post it in the question answer box. I'll be happy to solve them. No? Okay, great. I'm happy to know that I was very clear in my session and everybody got a clear idea of what it was. And a very wishing you a very, very happy December. Let's welcome the New Year's with an amazing score. Let's keep practicing. Don't really procrastinate things. Don't really, believe in starting practicing from New Year's. Practice it now. I'm very sure by the end of the next year, you all will be at places you want to be. And you all clear the exam with flying colors. And wishing you all, I will see you in a webinar next Saturday as well. But meanwhile, wishing you all a very happy month of December, happy winters. Keep practicing and all the best for your exams, guys. And have a very great weekend ahead. Also, I'm very sorry for the technical disturbance that was caused in between this session, and that would be avoided from the next time. Thank you so much.